Hey, welcome back. It's Mystic. You can call me Angel. I hope you are having a fabulous day. I wanted to try something new in what I call Here's What Caught My Eye this week. I read a lot of articles. I stay on the dailies, just keeping my ear to the ground on the industry. And I thought it'd be cool to share some things with you that stand out for me. And I thought a fun way to launch this concept with you is this article that I ran into today from the BBC. It's called, The Paradox of Horror and the Calm Beneath the Chaos. This article stopped me in a different way than most do. This piece laid out something that I've kind of always felt but never had the words for. Strange and comforting power for me for watching horror movies. I've had this conversation with friends of mine, and they're like, you must be some kind of psychotic nut. You watch these movies and it chills you out. The rest of us, it scares us. And now I actually have clinical proof, because this article points to real study information and quotes real professionals about how for some people out there, horror movies relax them. So, let's get into the article. I will post it. I'll show it to you here, and I'll post it in the descriptions. You can take it out. It's written by Dave Robson. Again, it's on the BBC, and it reflects on jump scares and gore not always being soothing for most people to watch, but that it can actually be considered therapy during ancient times, during anxious times. Sometimes my tongue doesn't want to work. And it's really funny. I'm going to quote this. It says here, philosophers and psychologists have pondered much around this, that logic dictates that emotion of fear evolved to warn us away from things that threaten our safety. It helps us avoid anything that might harm us or those we care about. It's why fear triggers fight or flight. So far, that makes perfect sense, right? This is, however, for many of us, we will be actively looking to frighten ourselves by devouring films specifically designed to send our hearts racing into our mouth. From zombie apocalypses to slasher bloodbaths, we love sending chills down our spines, making horror movie Hollywood's most profitable genre. Now, this is a really great article for me. I shared this with my husband, and I was teasing him like, look, see, I have proof. They share a quote from Mark Miller, who is a research fellow at Monash University in Australia and the University of Toronto. He says that even Aristotle spoke about how weird it is that we're set up to evade and avoid dangerous, disgusting, harmful, horrible things. Yet we feel magnetized to be in spaces where we are in touch with disgusting, horrible, noxious, or horrifying things. Man. And, over the past 10 years, it cites here that psychologists have been doing research trying to understand this aspect and how we seem to be drawn to it and how it is a paradox because we should be running from it. There is even a quote here from a psychologist at Arizona State University who wrote a book called Morbidly Curious, How Science Explains Why We Can't Look Away. And his research is riddled with this. This is how he spends his research. And I think it's just amazing that we've got to the point now where horror films are being celebrated finally for just being entertainment, but now they're saying that it can help us release anxiety. Now that's something I didn't see coming. This Dr. Colton Scrivener, who did the Morbidly Curious book, says the first evidence we have of writing includes horrible demons and monstrous beasts. I would say features of horror stories are as old as language. I agree. I feel like way back in the day, before written language, when we were sitting around caves, that we were telling stories of horror in addition to all the other stories we were telling. Now, as a parent, there's reasons for that, I know. because you tell your children things that they need to hear to keep them from doing things that will get them in danger. Now we have media, we have things to support us with this, but don't go into a stranger's car. I remember being told that when I was little as a Gen Xer, and when the guy drives up to you in a van and he offers you candy, don't get in, because bad things happen to little kids that do that. So we've always been told about monsters, right? Always been told about monsters. So I have in my imagination as a writer, the image of the cave people in caves and the fire going and it's dark outside and the parents telling their children about the beasts. And for them, they were beasts because they lived with beasts. They were outdoors with beasts that will just grab you and just devour you if you go out there. So don't go there, beware the moon and stay on the moors. It's what we've always done. We've told horror stories. We glorify them a bit more now. This is a really good article. I really would love for you to read it. But here it says, the first evidence we have of writing includes horrible demons and monstrous beasts, as he said, described 4,000 years ago in Babylonian tablets in the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? So for those of you that are into mythology like I am, you know the story of Gilgamesh. These ancient god stories are filled with the dread of doom. They're filled with the underworld, ghouls and goblins and beasts. They have always told these stories and they were celebrated. These were the feature films of ancient times, right? My goodness. This is such a good article. It talks about how in one study, he recruited around 400 online participants for an online questionnaire in which they had to rate their agreement with a series of statements about their consumption of horror films. They answer the questions like, let me see what he has here. I like the sensations that watching horror movies give me. And I've gotten so scared during a horror movie that I was afraid to go home or walk in my house afterwards. Or, look, I felt that, man. I like to watch torture films because I'm curious what torture would really be like. Now that one's kind of out there. I don't know about all that, but I'm sure there are people that connect with that one for real. But analyzing the results, he found that participants could be divided into three main groups. The first, adrenaline junkies. They were driven by the physical feelings of suspense. They reported feeling more alive during that time of fear. The next group, white knucklers. They're the ones that dislike the stress that horror films provoke. They don't necessarily enjoy the feeling of fear, but they do enjoy the feeling of conquering their fear in the process of watching. Wow. And then the third, you guys ready for this one? The third one is the dark copers. These are the ones that saw watching it as a way of dealing with real life. They reported watching horror films to explore how violent the world is, for instance, and to remind themselves of how safe their own lives were in comparison to the gore on the screen. Some even saw the on-screen action as a way of managing their anxiety or depression, a way of testing their bravery. Oh my goodness, this is wild stuff. Each of the motives here, he says, provide a way to resolve the paradox of our fascination with the macabre. You can have multiple paths to morbid curiosity, he said, so you can be a little bit of all of them. I wonder, so where do you think you are as you look at this stuff? That's really crazy. That's really crazy if you think about it. If you think about it, it makes sense. It makes sense to me because I know I probably have a little bit of all three. I'm not big into torture. I do not like pain. I do not want to torture other people, but I do like to watch, the body slash movies and the zombie movies. There's something about, the danger. There's something about watching the survivors. And if this guy, he annoys me, I'm glad he's gone. There's something about all of that. Yes. And then for me, as I think about the white knuckler, the person who's uncomfortable, but yet wants to get through it. And then there's the person who copes. I think I've got a little bit of all of them in me when I watch horror movies, but I also love the stories. let me see. This was just a really good article, and it talks about how we've adjusted or not really adjusted well after the pandemic, and how people are using horror movies to cope with the anxiety that we've built up as a society as a result of the pandemic. And for many people, the pandemic has not left us. We are still coping with the pandemic. And I know I read a lot of articles about how we've got the pandemic generation with the Z's, where this is the world that they're growing up in. The rest of us had many years before the pandemic to kind of point to and remember. So there's this is a trauma, the effect of trauma, and how people are tapping into horror to help them process trauma. My goodness. Man, you should read this article. It speaks also about how in different cultures, the setting may be different, the language may be different, but it's the same. It may show up different. And that makes sense to me, because when you watch, Netflix, you get to play around with movies from different countries, and you get to see how different societies, different cultures process horror. And it's different cultures process trauma as well. They process it different. They process their anxiety different. And the cultural mold is different for all of us. This gives me a different perspective. I am not a fan of the idea of thinking that we are using films to help us with our therapy or our processing of our feelings. I think that as an industry, it's our responsibility to entertain. I think as individuals, it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves. Self-care, go see someone if you need to see someone, talk to someone. I don't think it's healthy to use films as therapy. And this article gave me the impression that we have a large number of people that use this art form, this genre, in that way. For me, it's entertainment. And for a lot of people I know, it's entertainment. I just love horror movies. I love horror movies and sci-fi movies. And I am not surprised. And it's fascinating to me to get this article, to read it. I suggest you take a look at it, and hey, give me your thoughts on it. This was really interesting to me. I don't have a lot of feelings about whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It is someone's opinion. It is a research project that a scientist did, and I think it's just interesting fodder for the fire in the day that we're in right now. And with Halloween coming, I don't know about you, but I am digging into all my horror films. The guy ends talking about that horror stories could even be incorporated into psychological therapy as a way of teaching people to confront difficult situations. And again, I feel like horror films should be entertainment. I feel like it would be remiss of us to hand over these horror films to clinicians to help us get through what we've got going on. I think that writers like myself should write really great stories. Directors and actors and producers should produce really good stories, and the audience should just have really great stories to see. And if you do have some trauma that you need to get through, to seek out an individual who's properly vetted, who has the right background to help you through your stuff. Halloween film trilogies or franchises should not be films you should watch to get over your trauma, at least not by yourself. It's interesting. It made me think about where we're going if one will expect to go into a therapist's office, and as part of your treatment, you'll be expected to watch Hellraiser and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then report back to the therapist on how it made you feel and what did you think, and journal as you're watching it, because I don't believe that's why they made those films, and I don't know enough about what it could do to help you move past it. It's just entertainment, and it's there to either freak you out and scare you and have a good time. But in today's world with AI and everything that's happening, it doesn't surprise me. I don't know where we're going. I sure would feel it would be unfortunate if that's where we went, but hey, if that's where we go, that's where we go. I'm not a professional therapist, so I'm not the person to speak with. you on that. But if it is where we go, I sure hope they don't leave you by yourself. If you're traumatized and you're there to see someone about something where you're working through your fear, I hope that they work through it with you and don't send you off by yourself to navigate through it and then have you come back to report back. That's the only thing that comes to mind. But this was a wild one for me, guys. Check out the article. I'll paste it there in the description. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and hey, thanks for coming by, and we'll talk to you later. Bye bye now.